Stephen Rao, also known as Tank.
And we're here on the front lines of the battle against the deep state cabal, the Illuminadonkeys, and all of those that want to suppress all of humanity for their own selfish reasons. So, how's it going? How's it going, Tank?
Well, I think things are nicely. Kim sent me a little diagram today to kind of show me how the system works and how she got the new system set up. And I realized that it's so simple that it's blowing people's minds. They don't know what to do with it. It's like, wait a minute, the money goes to the people. That's like, yep, that's how it works.
Yeah,
pretty simple.
It's like you draw a line.
But I'm very, very happy that the Department of Justice has recommended that Comey be tried for criminal prosecution, referred for criminal prosecution.
Under for what purpose? Not for the leaks, right?
Let's see. I'll look it up. I was just looking at it here. I'm not sure. I mean, there's just so many crimes that he commits. It's hard to narrow it down.
Well,
yeah, it is for leaking information, actually.
Oh, they are.
It says we are required by the Inspector General Act to send information that we've identified that could plausibly be criminal to the Department of Justice, according to Horowitz. And
Well, it does look like
okay.
No,
maybe I misunderstood. Yeah. The Justice Department ultimately decided not to prosecute Mr. Comey, despite the conclusion by Mr. Horowitz's team that he improperly leaked information to the news media. The documents leaked by Mr. Comey was sensitive but not classified. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not a big deal. So
nope.
not big enough to put him up there for treason. But the other ones are, and in regards to that, the legal, let's say the bureaucracy, the things that they must do within the bureaucracy. What has just happened that I heard yesterday was that they have moved for the declassification of these certain things to be now go through that process of redacting those things, and so that these documents about what needs to be declassified are now should be done by the end of the month. So we'll see the declass happen in the next 2 weeks, and at that point, that's when the fingers can point all the way up to Obama, and everyone in between. So this is where we're going to see Comey, Clapper, Brennan, all being exposed. So maybe we will
declass and delay. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like, again, I understand. This is the way things get done, which I find to be an oxymoron when it comes to talking about Washington D.C. because things don't really seem to get done.
Right.
It's kind of a we're gonna do this. This is coming. Then it comes out. Scathing information, pages and pages of violation by Comey. Nothing happened. But last year, a clerk in the Congress doxed one of the Republicans, and he's already in jail.
Right.
Now, why is it that they were so swift to jump to act of justice while career child hating, eating, beating, killing, sexually violating animals in Congress who have signed off on a lifestyle of hedonism and Satanism and evil against humanity, with what seems to be virtually no real weight or power behind it. They really just don't have the teeth behind anything they're doing, and yet here we sit. It's really unfortunate because I'm still baffled by how on earth it's possible for banks to keep money out of our hands. It's amazing. It's at the end of the day, if I were to kind of speak, as one of the people, you got to kind of almost say it's on some level it's the people's fault, right? Because at this point, and I'm not one to blame the people for these horrible things, but you've got all of these people in banks, right? And you've got all these people in the world starving and struggling and trying to do the right thing and doing all they can not to be compromised and, stay the course. And then you've got all these banks that, they're people too, aren't they? I mean, they're just people. They're not like, they're not superheroes or supervillains, right? They're just regular people making decisions every single day to obey other people that call them up and make really, horrifying threats. Like, I guess that's what they're doing. I'm not really sure why anyone believes Rothschild. I mean, they never deliver on anything. Chinese, the RV is not ever going to happen. It's never going to happen. I've got people right now who are sitting on black cards with $72 trillion on them. And when I asked them about that, they've already got the black cards, right? Because just getting the black card is like the big delay, right? They're sitting on the black cards, and when I talk to them, oh, well, send me some cash. And they're like, well, it hasn't been released yet. Well, it's like, of course it hasn't been released because it's not real, right? I can also send you a card. I can send you my library card and tell you that I loaded it with $100 gazillion. It doesn't make it true. So, I just find that whole process to be a little, kind of time for us to do a little, internal investigation of essential matters within ourselves, and all the people out there in the banking world, and various organizations that are part of this stall tactic. It's stalling the inevitable. This is a battle that the people have really already won. So I'm just not sure if it requires, is it just a few more people who need to stand up in the right places? Is it just, a few individuals in the right places to just demonstrate integrity and say, this can't happen anymore. We got to change it. And one of them say, like, it starts with me right now, and just making a difference, right?
Right.
What does it take? I'm always thinking about these things, and I mean, Dan and I were talking about this before the call. I think, creation, the act of creating something new, right? Now, on one hand, you can say, well, creation happens out of necessity, right? So you create out of necessity because something doesn't exist, and you need it, so you create a way. Right? That's definitely true. But I think the best creation comes from a place of where you're not concerned about, the hierarchy of needs, right? You're not stressed out chasing after something on the bottom level because those things are taken care of. And now you're able to create and expand and magnify, some basic ideas, and you're not stressed out worrying about, the bill collector coming to take your cars. So,
or turning off your electricity or your Wi-Fi.
Right. I mean, and especially, like I think about this all the time, like what you're doing, Dan, I'm doing, and others out there, my whole team. And it's people that are like, no, we are going to make a difference no matter what. We're going to have an impact. Our voice is going to be heard. They're not going to suppress us with money, right? And it's really rejecting, the chains, right? You're rejecting the chains that they've had around our neck with this money and saying, no, we're finding a way every day. We're finding new ways every day. We're constantly breaking through, but it is, I do think there's something to be said about the ease of creation, right? The beautiful ease of just reaching for the paint and it's there and putting it directly on the canvas and no concerns about, how am I going to buy more paint? When I was in college, I remember I was an art major. And so when I was in college, I remember like being in college and like having to make decisions between like, do I buy food or do I go buy paint so I can finish like, my portfolio for my projects? Paint was expensive.
Yeah. And the things you paint on as well, the substrates, so everything is like, balancing, whether you have to pay your, get food or, pay your rent. You know, which one are you going to take? Well, what's the pressure your landlord is putting on you, right? What is which it's always comes down to what's going to happen, and what has given you the most pressure, right? And then that's what you do, so this is um, there's no reason for this in this world other than the system. We have abundance of everything on this planet. We're not overpopulated. There's plenty of food. There's plenty of air and water. What is this lack, this artificial scarcity that's created? This is all done to keep people in power, all to basically take from everyone, and it's stupid, right? To put all this misery on the planet when it doesn't have to be like that at all.
Nah, doesn't have to be. It's just it's unfortunate, but you know what? But it's really not, and I don't want to dwell on that too much, because in reality, we're at the precipice of this incredible breakthrough, right? And these really are the last days where we'll ever be able to have these experiences, to remember what it's like to have.
Oh, I'm done. I'm done.
Oh yeah, me too, by the way. But I was thinking about this, is that Kim always, she would say, it's not about putting them down; it's about elevating us, right? So, there's something to be said about us, elevating our own status and realizing that's within our own grasp, right? And I just mean, from a spiritual and energetic state. I'm not trying to put that burden on everybody out there, because I do know what it's like to, it's crushing. It's very hard for people to, focus on things, spiritual matters, when they're, worried about feeding their kids. It's just it's a difficult situation to put people in. And, and right now, it's amazing how inept the banks are. No matter how many times people keep showing up with some random new heritage accounts that they think they have control over, and they wait and wait and wait, and they lock and load. These things take minutes. Minutes in reality, to transfer money, to move money around, to get things going. They take minutes, So, but instead, it's, they'll wait for anyone. It reminds me of like a labyrinth, right? And somebody's going through the labyrinth, and the whole labyrinth is set on fire, right? And you're trapped in the labyrinth, right? You're fighting your way out, trying to breathe. You get right to the end of the labyrinth, right? And at the end of the labyrinth, they see Kim, and instead of just coming out, they stay so they can die off. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, she has bested you in everything. Just accept it. Accept it. It's time. But
yeah.
But there's more to it, to be honest. There's more going on there than that. And I don't even fully understand right now what the blockage is. What the final blockage is, other than people. It's just people. It's people making decisions about other people, and they're making decisions to have their very mediocre, average banker pay salary life or whatever, rather than liberate all of humanity. That is that's a decision I don't ever want to make that choice. So,
right.
Anyways, so I saw President Trump at the wall today. Did 66 miles of the new wall put up. Pretty impressive, I thought.
It was funny. He said he was talking about the great technology behind the wall, and he says, and we have it wired. Can you tell a little bit more about the how we have it wired? And he said, no, sir. We don't want to tell them about that. And he said, oh, okay. Well, that's good, right? So I'll only say that it's wired. So, they put the wires in now so they don't have to do it later. It's set up for cameras, and if someone's trying to cut, or break through or do anything, they get alerts. They know. So then they can move.
Yeah.
They can move people to that area. Set up for drones.
Well, I really appreciate just seeing the president down there by the wall and talking about it too. To be honest, because it's really an area of expertise of his, right? He's very detail oriented. especially in the world of construction, right? I mean, he's a real estate mogul, and every report I've ever heard about him, even before I was a fan, was always how detail oriented he was about things. And he was really, you tell he was just just a guy, right, who understood like the craftsmanship and the work that goes into building these incredible walls and why they did it this way. And I really appreciated him going into that and explaining why this is so valuable, why this is going to help people so much, how much easier it is, to stop our country from being invaded, and then overrun by, these very questionable characters like anyone associated with Ilhan Omar. It's like, that's another thing too. I listened to this whole phone conversation with Timothy Holmesmith, right? And I caught on finally how they do this, right? How they called him in early for a hearing on the same day he had a jury trial, but they didn't define what it was, right? It was just a setup. So they would just bring him in and trick him, right? End up sending him off to jail. And they were talking about saying how this is how they get people all the time, because the average person wouldn't know that, right? They would just get that and say, oh, I guess I got to be in at 8:30, and they just go in. Not realizing it was just, up in the Minnesota district, the Pentagon is investigating, and the Pentagon has said, this is terrible. They're violating every possible ideology behind the Constitution. So this is the plan, right? Like, they just want to make the real law of the land completely obsolete.
Right.
Now, the reality to that is, if we're going to restore the republic, right, there is, we do have to start calling actual grand juries. This does require the people, people don't realize that when you see a wrongdoing by the judicial system, which we are seeing all over the place, right, they're completely violating our constitutional rights. Now, if we don't start calling grand juries and we don't start actually filing criminal charges against these groups, you know what? We will lose those rights because we're submitting ourselves to these statutes, which are false. They're against the Constitution. They're against the people. And at some point, you've got to stand up and just really say, hey, this requires everybody. I mean, just regular people, too. Mm-hmm. No special skills, right? Grand jury is 25 people, that anybody can call. Anyone can call a grand jury. I'm working on it now, actually. I spent the whole day with the lawyers working on it. And working on it to do it the right way. And all the lawyers I was talking to today, they're a bunch of guys, different guys who have worked with common law, and they all have their horror stories, right, about common law, about how they did this and they got, messed with and, got their names dragged through the mud and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Because. And that's the one thing I've seen it. I've known many people my entire adult life, actually even when I was not quite an adult, from probably the age of 16, I've known the people that have been protesting these things from the standpoint of common law and of, the standing in the court and what the courts are all about and the losing of the rights and all the rest of it. And so it's been part of who I am all the way growing up. So I know, that this is not just, that they're going to just mess with you, right? They're going to actually break their own rules in doing so. And then there's no recourse for you. And that's where it sits, because what you do is you end up getting into an attack posture. And they've already labeled you as an enemy. You're an enemy combatant. And this was not done just recently. This was done back in the 30s. So this is all part of the bankruptcy, and what were they were using people for as collateral was to first turn everyone into an enemy, a foreign agent, right? And then treat everyone as an enemy. So if you go into their courts and act as a combatant, you go in there to fight, you're done. Then no matter which way, you may have all your ducks in a row, but if you're on the attack posture, you're not going to make it. So that's the
yes. I agree with that to a certain Lutz, I do agree that we have to be very cognizant. I know that one of the creators from the network, has been very much in an attack posture and is currently in jail awaiting charges, and that's unfortunate. And he was very much saying a lot of good stuff, none of it necessarily in order, but certainly not the right way. And I think that that's important, right? It's not enough to be right. You have to be effective, right? So, sometimes you can use the right words, but if you don't, you don't use the right words with the right attitude, it doesn't matter, And not just attitude. I mean, you should be confident, and you should be able to claim your rights. But a lot of times with these common law things, there's so many infractions that courts have violated that this corporation has violated against people. It's hard not to, get overwhelmed and go after all of it. But at some point, you really just got to pick, like 2 or 3 things that you know that you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, and you can actually win that and actually, change what's going on. That's really the key. I mean, at least on some level. But to be quite honest, I'm not a big fan of playing their game either.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's like this, that video we talked about yesterday, right? I like what the gentleman had to say. He said, in reality, you're going to tell them what the law is, right? And that's right. And then as an administrator, which I encourage everyone to look into, and find out how you can get involved, because this requires the involvement of the people, right? And I apologize, I'm not a little more organized with it. I've just been overwhelmed with, my hometown blowing up here this week. So, but we've got to stand up as the people, right? Some of us look at it, I've often thought of myself as standing up for the people, but you know what? I'm one of the people too, right? So we should all be standing up for each other and as the people, as one collective, because as a collective, there's no possible way they could ever stop us. But the problem is we're so divided against each other. And I do think, Dan, that one of the things that's absolutely necessary is everything needs to be played out in complete public view. It has to be reported on constantly. It has to be exposed. This idea of keeping secrets keeps you safe is the biggest scandal the cabal ever pulled on us. Everybody thinks they're going to keep their secrets and they're going to get away with something, or they're, somehow keeps them safe. It doesn't. It doesn't keep you safe.
Right.
Good guys fight in the sun. It's just the way it is. So.
Yes.
We're our legal team is reaching out to RFK, so hopefully we'll get a hold of him. See what he has to say.
I'm right out here in the sun. I'm going to keep playing in the sun.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. So I guess they found some more. Now they've confirmed that Ilhan Omar's father is the actual terrorist, right? Nur Saeed, right? And that she brought him over here under false pretenses, with a fake name. I know we've all talked about this, but it's confirmed now. So now the question is, at what point do we look for the Republic to actually step in and say enough? And I think that's the problem. That the Republic is, as the government, is not the bodies that we see on television. It's the people, right? So the people have to stand together to actually bring these things out. The problem is, I did a grand jury that was called against Hillary Clinton here in New York, and I have the whole case file, and it's useless. No one's ever done anything with it, right? It's like, and they all found her guilty, but it's like, so what? Clearly nobody cares.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, how do you get the apparatus of and bureaucracy to take the document and do what they're supposed to, right? Which is for it to be turned over to the DA. And the DA is supposed to take it and then go ahead and either use it as is or do more investigation, right? But they should be using it as is, right? And then say, okay, I've got this here. Let me go ahead and now I'll put this through and start arresting people, because these people found it to be, breaking the law. These are the charges, and go to court with it. That's all a grand jury's ready. It just preps for the government to start action. But it's the basis of a case. So gathering this information together, and it's for the citizens to do for themselves. So yeah, it should be done now. It's sitting there. So how do you do it? You with a big protest march with the document in hand, go and start delivering it to the DA, one after one. Hey, I've got another one here. Here's another copy. Here's another copy. Here's another copy. Oh, you didn't get that one. Here's another copy. Just put it
actually, according to Black's law, right, which is actually the law that we should recognize, right? That's the people's law, and we are a common law, government or natural law.
Yeah, it's
or universal law.
Those are the
right?
law books, right? The Black's Law Dictionary. It's a defined term. So if you know what the basis of the words are, then you can apply everything based upon that.
And I will say this: somebody, jumped on to attack me about on YouTube about my language and not using the right words and how this could get me in trouble. And I am very, very open to anybody who wants to educate me how to do this the right way. Jumping on to attack and then running away, as far as I can tell, you're just a typical coward who does nothing, right? You talk a lot of smack and do nothing. But maybe I'm wrong, so please, whoever that person is, I would invite you to actually reach out to me. I mean, I'm very accessible to anyone. And I'm always looking to do this the right way. And I certainly don't claim to be an expert in these things. I know what I know. And as I know these things, I speak on them immediately because I think they're important for other people to be aware of, And, but I'm never impressed by someone who tells me how wrong I am but doesn't offer any solutions, and just throwing a bunch of mumbo jumbo into a YouTube comment doesn't really help anybody. You can reach out to me and talk to me. I'm trying to fight for your rights as well as mine and everyone else's. And I would appreciate anybody who cares enough about the people to help me do it the right way. So I do want to make sure I make that clear. I'm not trying to say I'm the extremist, but I'll tell you what, I will go to bat for it, even if I don't have all the pieces right. I'll keep fighting until I figure it out. Or whatever it takes. I feel I don't get in trouble for saying I'm gonna fight, but I just feel like we've got to find a place where the people can be safe, where the people are free, and that we embrace that, and we own that, and we accept the responsibility for it, and actually are able to express that freedom, and that is our right. So.
It is. We are to self-govern ourselves. It also means we have to take responsibility, which means you can't leave it up to others. So, everyone listening, and watching this should actually run for office. And it takes us to get in there and change things. I think maybe I should just move back to the United States and then go and run for office. So, be part of the change, because it's going to be happening. It is happening. So there's more people that are getting into things. Trump is leading the way. One of the things for me being here, and it wasn't like I planned to move here to the Philippines. It wasn't like that. It was just kind of like, well, I'm making a lot of trips to China. I did have a girlfriend in the Philippines, so going back and forth, it seemed easier to do that than go all the way back to the States. And by the way, whenever I go back to the States, I'm always hungry. I don't get nutrition out of the food, and when I'm here in the Philippines, the food has so much, it seems fully rich, right? So And I noticed it back and forth as I'd go. I said, God, can't wait to get back to the Philippines, so I'm not hungry.
Wow, yeah, that's cool though.
Yeah, and then and the chemtrails as well. But I was always complaining about the chemtrails. I said, so here I'm looking at my skies now, and they're big, fluffy, cotton bally type clouds that are out there, right? So they're not a stream, and then they break into this blanket that covers the whole. whole horizon there. So it's, but since things are changing, I said, maybe I should go back. Trump is, changing things around, and things are moving forward, and be part of the change. And I think, where should I go? What state? Do I go to Pennsylvania? And change Pennsylvania? Or do I go back to California? Right? Do I go back to Utah? I used to say the only place in the states that I would want to move back to would be Utah, not because I'm a Mormon, but because the Mormons have kept one thing alive in the same, which is the family. The strength of their families. They never gave up on Christmas, for example. Plus it will be really cold winters, but where would I go? How to what's a electoral decision? I've lived in these other states somewhat, right? Some way more than others, but. I feel like I want to make that effort, but then I have lots of things that I can do here, right, to help. And so, anyway, I'm a little bit torn about that.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
No, I'll tell you, I've had no intention of jumping into the political realm, but I'm not afraid of it either. So, and I always appreciate that about President Trump, right? He always kind of kept that door open if needed. But, he did, have, considerable assets to do so, right? And I guess, that's something I try not to get hung up on, but, I just feel like whenever people do, campaign fundraising, it's like, well, where are you going to get money from? Like right now, I know there's no real money out there. And everybody I know, everybody around the world, they're all telling me the same thing. Like, oh yeah, we're going to get money from here, we're going to get money from there. And I just keep thinking, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah.
It's like everyone has to learn for themselves that the real, girth of the income or of the real assets are, there's some money in circulation, but it's very limited, and I mentioned to Kim, I'm like, there's all these things that are happening right in my town, right, which appears to be kind of a scare campaign that they're trying to, initiate here. At least in my perception of it. And I threw that at Kim, which a lot of times Kim would just dismiss if it wasn't so. And she said, yeah, probably. She said they're not happy about this weekend because they had their Harvest Moon, carnival or whatever it is, their meeting, which is normally met with, some kind of horrible offering and different things, right? But they had no plan, and they didn't get the message they wanted, right? So the meeting for the order continues to go on because they're not getting what they were told to stand down by by these people that they worship, right? And there's still those who are not obedient to it, so they continue to fight it. And all they are doing is prolonging the inevitable. But one thing they are experts at, they understand. Attorneys are masterful at this. If they do nothing else, they're masterful at delaying, delay. And it's a mindset because they think if they just delay long enough and they have assets and we don't, right, then they think, well, we'll just wait them out. Eventually, they'll compromise, right? Eventually, they'll bend to their will. They think we'll bend to their will, which I think is, relatively logical, right? That's, a logical conclusion for them to come to because it's always happened in the past, right?
Yeah.
And obviously people need things.
No, it's not going to happen. No, it's not
But
going to happen. That is, from long time ago. Even if you think about this, what was the Earth like 500 years ago, and under the last Infinity Agreement, when the had to come up for renewal. What was
right,
happening?
the Dark Ages, right?
Yeah, the Dark Ages, right? Now, was that planned? Make it a dark age, right? So that people re-up. Seems kind of coincidental, huh?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in perfect timing.
Yeah, it's calamity time, but not this time around. Also,
No.
there's
I've also wondered myself, gentlemen. I've also wondered myself if they called it the Dark Ages because of the large suppression of real information, and I'm trying to think of the term that the Catholic Church, how they went after people and things
heresy.
like that.
The Spanish Inquisition.
The heresy.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, I couldn't kind of just hush anymore. How you guys doing, man? Had to drop my energy in here.
Hey, man, good to hear from you, Andrew.
Yeah, good to hear you.
I've been heeding your suggestions about, one might say, hush for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been proving very, very nice. I've been just kind of keeping quiet. I got a little small injury from training, and it's been kind of relaxing and listening to my body. So how's everything been in your guys' necks of the woods?
Oh, had some people get killed in my neighborhood. My neighbor's son, sadly, 16-year-old or a 17-year-old kid, for walking a girl home, and then another kid who charged at some police officers with a samurai sword.
Yeah, I saw that on last night's call.
Yeah, and
heard you guys talk about it.
yeah. So there's and then there was there was a threat on the school today that they were going to come in with guns and shoot it up, and try to exact their vengeance. So I had to do some reconfiguring there just in case. Because it was kind of interesting. Like the girl that was being walked home, right? She lives on one side of my house, and the young man who got killed, he lives on the other side of my house. And so I thought, well, that could be, a clever setup. They're trying to, put a little scare tactic out there, right? Like if you're going to come and shoot both of them up, and then my house is in the middle, I guess there's a pretty good chance that, I can get shot up too, or my kids or something like that. But, to be honest, I just moved with some wisdom, always better to have wisdom before strength. Have the wisdom not to put yourself in a situation before you're praying for the strength to get out of it. So,
you had also mentioned being effective.
Yes, very much being effective.
That's why I've been quiet lately. I'm trying to, reorganize and do this, start from square one. How am I effective? I might have potential. I might have a loud, powerful voice. But if it really isn't effective, I'm wasting my gift. Back to square one. Now, with that being said, Dan, I wanted to reach out to you for a second as well, dude. Been sensing your suffering lately and seeing it on the chat and stuff. Me and the missus don't have a lot, otherwise we would have been happy to send it to you. But right now, I am definitely much, much, much love to you, man. Understand, over here below the poverty line, you are loved by quite a few people, dude, and probably everywhere else too, if I might just add.
Well, thank you. Oh, I feel it. I know everyone will, contributes when they can, and if their heart is, pushed to do so. I did notice that someone sent 100 already, which is good. That takes me, a bit of the way
That
there.
much closer.
Yeah, so that much closer, and I think that after this month, I should be fine with my cloud token project. It seems to be starting to gain, but it starts off with dollars a day and then builds up. So hopefully in a month from now, I won't have to do this again. It may be much sooner, but I appreciate your kind words. Everyone that has already contributed, thank you. And it's just everyone pitches in and helps, and that's who we are. I've given my whole life. I've given lots of money. Thousands of dollars at times to people, and I never asked for money back or asked for or you ever thought about it again, really, So that's really who we are. That's at our core. We're really, wanting to help one another. We are amazing. The reality.
That's what's got me gravitating towards you guys, actually. Speaking of which, Miss Walker, Michelle Walker, shout out to a solid woman putting in the work.
Yes, indeed. Speak walkers, man. I'll tell you what, I got there was this big controversy because, Kathy Hall was supposed to show up to Amy Hankins' case, or her hearing or whatever it was there at the Supreme Court, right? To support her. Amy Hankins' husband actually paid for Kathy Hall's ticket. And she just kind of went MIA, right? And this guy comes out and he says, oh, no, I talked to somebody who talked to her, she's all set, right? She's
that's
okay.
Fishy.
Yeah, well, it's fishy because
right off the bat.
Right, because we had multiple sources that we pinged her phone, right, to find out where she was and the path she went, and she was, her phone, the last place it showed up, when we did that was the crematorium at the Air Force Base in Colorado. Now, that kind of seems like, well, that's, you go and you cremate a body, right? And you take the phone out first, right? So you can fake that she's okay, right? You send the text out, oh, I'm fine. But then Kathy Hall called me, right? And her voice matched, right? But you never know with today's technology, right? But she was very clearly trying to discredit Michelle, right? Now, I gotta tell you, in my experience with Michelle, she's a hard woman to discredit, okay? Because the reality is, she records every conversation, she screenshots everything, she keeps all of her documents, and she's meticulous about it, right? Matter of fact, if anything, she gives too much information sometimes. So,
I call that efficient and thorough. Now, I don't mean to. Yeah, I just got 3 red flags as you mentioned that. First and foremost, someone is obviously, it's like setting her up or trying to, and boy, do they suck at it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, they're talking to the wrong person. Actually, to be honest, if I were to assess that as a call from an agency, now she said that there was a potential risk, and that they moved her into a federal safe location, right? And so then I added up all the things, and I put them all back, and then I said, well, this doesn't match up. These things you're referring to have no validity because you're referring to things that were on the Arkansas Facebook page, just gossip and rumors, right? Michelle's not guilty of it and has never said. Kathy Hall said she would provide me screenshots to prove what she was saying. She had no screenshots to prove, right? What she sent me didn't prove anything. But Michelle has proved everything, she said, right? So she had everything she showed me, it didn't add up. So I said, I'm not sure what your people are telling you, but do you guys think I'm a rookie here? You think I'm going to be like all caught up and be like, oh, like people do that with us all the time, right? We start talking about something, then they do a Google search, and now every time you turn around, you hear about another Google insider talks about how Google's trying to control the world. They're trying to release war robots. Something insane that you can't even believe is real, but it is. That they're corrupt, right? And they're controlling the way we think by controlling what happens when we do a search, right? So the first thing that pops up is some, rip-off report or whatever, fraud report, which these are all run by guys that, they'll put anything on a fraud report, In the first fraud report against Kim, you go through the whole thing, and then the author at the end, it says Kim Gogan. It says that she wrote it herself, which obviously she didn't do that, right? So it wasn't even hard to debunk, but people are so lazy. So this woman, Kathy Hall, she's going off about all these different things, and I just call her out on it. I'm like, come on, and then she laughs. She goes, oh, I don't have people. I'm like, well, if you don't have people, then who are the people that put you in federal custody? Aren't those your people? So, it's like when they talk, they're just so used to lying. So I don't know, to be honest, if that was the real Kathy Hall. I don't know if she's really alive. I don't know. Because she also said that she did not know who Amy Hankins was. Right? And I'm like, wait a minute.
There's red flag number 3. There's red flag number 3.
Right, and I have the PayPal receipt to show that Amy Hankins' husband actually paid for Kathy Hall's ticket. So that's a blatant lie, right? Like the real Kathy Hall at least knew who she was.
Yeah.
right? And she actually, I would say that she was probably threatening me because these are two things she said to me. She said, well, the people I know in Arkansas are the politicians. Now, is that something you'd want to tell somebody in our field? Like your best contacts are the politicians in Arkansas that we know
Nope.
is so that has the highest, Clinton suicide rate of any place in the world. And then she said, she goes, those are her contacts. She goes, just for safety's sake, I don't want Michelle mentioning me. She goes, if you have children, you'll understand what I mean.
Oh, so she's threatening somebody.
That's threatening, yeah.
Well, yeah, right. She was threatening me, right? So she let me know I should be scared. So all the cabal out there who thinks you're gonna scare me and it's gonna, you're gonna start feeding off my energy of loosh and I'm gonna be terrified. Oh my gosh, please. It's like I'm broken. I can't even bring myself to pretend that he's scared of you. I just can't.
Yeah. Tank, you should do some stand-up comedy, man. You got some jokes. I just wanted to briefly pop in here and encourage you guys. I didn't want to derail what was going on. I was really loving where the conversation was going. And again, just wanted to come in here and say, give some love and some energy and keep speaking. And let the haters keep hating, man. They're running out of wind and things to talk about.
Yeah. Well, you're always welcome.
Man,
Great. Pop in anytime.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, love you guys. I'm going to disappear. Awesome.
Andrew. I like Andrew. He's like a good character, good guy.
Yeah.
All right, Dan. I don't got anything else more that's pressing.
Well, we covered the what's going on in Hong Kong with us going north. I think that's pretty good sign. I think more of the push to get rid of communism worldwide. I think that's what the big picture is. We've got the FISA D-class happening in the next couple of weeks, or at least it's in for review right now. It's in the bureaucracy, so that's due. So these things are all about ready to hit. So we're just right here on the front lines. That's it. I guess it.
Dan, it's funny. I will say this. The second accuser of Kevin Spacey died.
I caught that too. Yeah, so anyone that accuses Kevin Spacey of sexual abuse, ends up living in Arkansas and then dying.
Yeah.
Just Arkansas.
Quite Arkansas, right? It's apparently, the only tool the deep states Illuminadonkeys have is to try to scare us into being quiet, right? So so someone gets raped and they tell them, don't you ever do anything or I'll hurt you, and what happens? Somebody ends up dead. So now that scares a whole bunch of people.
Right.
Everyone out there, believe me when I say this, the only strength they have is if you remain afraid. It's the only thing. Because the collective is so powerful. The force of our energy when we stand together. I use this example all the time, and I'll use it again. If you have one person standing and everyone else is on their knees, with their face in the dirt, bowing down, it's very easy for everyone to believe that that individual is more powerful, more gifted, more intelligent, whatever, than they are. But all it takes is for one person to stand up and look them in the eye. And then as the whole collective stands up, you realize not only are they not greater than you, in all probability, they're less than you. But as long as you bow down to them and give them your power, then that's where we'll stay. Because the only thing to look at is dirt. So we got to stand up. We got to stand up any way we can. Find ways. And right now, if anybody out there, I'm going to organize this for everyone. We will put it on the Speak Project so everyone knows the course of action to take to get involved with these common law courts, to call your own grand jury for wrongdoings or for criminal activity or injustice of the actual judicial system. in which you can actually flip the script on them. You can become an administrator in your own county, and the administrators, they work at the behest of the grand jury, and they go out and investigate what the grand jury is looking into. So if a grand jury is called to say that Governor Cuomo illegally took or unlawfully took our constitutional rights, and he had no right to do so, therefore he must be removed from office, whatever. I don't know if that's a real thing exactly, but something like that. And you get to be the administrator, and you have full authority. You can walk into a place and you can demand documents, not demand, but you can ask for documents. They have to comply because you are the law of the land. And this is something I know personally is my only experience where I was, with source of meditation, and he told me two things. He said, finish them off. And he said, you are the highest court on the land, in the land. And he was talking about the people, not me. It's the people. Right. So I think this is it's time to start really taking those things seriously, at least for me, but I'm just sharing with you guys.
And we have to, like I said, work on that next part after we do the grand jury, taking those documents and not having them sit and wait. We have to actually make them move. We have to have the government take it and do what they're supposed to do, right? They're supposed to take these and work on them. They're not supposed to just, shelve them, right? So the only way we can really force that is, I think, to, make a parade of people, go into the DA's office, call the news, call all the people, make a big line of people with everyone delivering the same document, right? Again and again and again and again. Maybe from each individual.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about with, nailing the Declaration of Independence to everyone's door.
Yeah.
In case you forget. In case you forget where you live.
Yeah, in a nice clear font. In a clear font.
Yes.
easy to read. Fonts. Easy to read, not like.
Right. Times New Roman. Just put it up there. It'll work every time.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's all I got, man. Hey, you have a great night.
All right.
Everybody else, do the same.
All right, everyone. So again, thanks. We had a couple people pop up on the line, I noticed. But did you have anything to say? Or are they just listening in? Maybe they're just listening in. Anyway, thanks everyone for your participation. Thanks for your contributions that you're making. Thank you. I'm close to being able where I need to be. So hopefully get this all done by today, so I can make this happen by tomorrow. And we'll be back tomorrow. Be sure to subscribe, give your thumbs up, positive comments, spread the link. And then be sure to check back on your subscriptions. Make sure that you're still subscribed and you got the notifications on.
Go fight, win. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, everyone.